What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Gabe Kuhn. We are without producer Kenny Stubblefield tonight, so just me and Gabe, like the old days. Gabe, how you doing, brother?
I am doing well. And you know what? We gave Kenny all that credit last week for being like the mainstay when we've been in and out of the lineup the past few weeks. And, you know, this is what my first strength coach at the University of Memphis always told us. He said, when I pat you on the rear end, don't shit my hand. And that's what I feel like we got this week with Kenny. I know he's got other responsibilities. He produces a lot of shows, but feel like we gave him a pat on the rear end and he shit in our hands. That's how I feel right now. It's unbelievable.
We pretty much gave him the Iron Man award last week.
I swear to God. And then next week he's like, guys, you know what? I have more important things than you guys. And you know, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah,
he'll probably explain it away next week, but we'll remember.
Yeah, we'll make it through. How was the weekend?
Oh God, you can ask me this. I told you off air, so I guess I'll bring it on air. I'll let everybody know that I was, in the bathroom all weekend. And it's funny because last week we had this discussion because Kenny's daughter was sick and he had to be in the house, and he got sick, and the family got sick, and all that. And I said, you know what? What was it? Was it upper respiratory? Because I could deal with that. I could deal with strep. You can give me whooping cough. I don't give a shit. If it's upper respiratory and I'm coughing, I'm cool. But I said stomach bug. It's the one thing I can't do. Taylor, as soon as we have that conversation that night, Monday night, is throwing up, yakking everywhere. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's just like a food poisoning, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't. It was a stomach bug. And I got it on Friday night, and Friday, Saturday, and half a Sunday. That was me. Couch, and bed, toilet, or bathroom. That is where I was the entire weekend until about, 3 p.m. on Sunday. It was brutal, brother.
It goes to show you there's power in words.
I mean, we may have to, just to remind people in post, Kenny may have to go ahead and throw this clip in there, because this is, man, I'm such a baby when it comes to the stomach virus. I cannot do it, man. I am so delighted, so happy to be done with it, though, man. So that was my weekend. I hope you were better than I.
Yeah, no, mine was better than that. Kenny definitely needs to cut the clip from last week, though, and splice that one in there, because
it's so insane.
You were like, the only thing I cannot do is the stomach bug. Like, if you I think verbatim you said, yes, and we'll see if Kenny puts it in.
I can deal with like the upper respiratory, throat itchy, throat hurt, that type of thing. I can deal with someone passing that on to me. I don't like it, but I remember growing up, whenever like my family, someone got like the stomach bug, that's the one I cannot deal with. Yeah. Like if you have it, I don't even want to be in the same vicinity as you, because that is the worst thing ever. Yes.
And then you told me on Tuesday when I came on your show that Taylor had the stomach bug and that you were avoiding her like the plague. And obviously it only worked for so long.
Well, I'm just glad Myers hasn't gotten there. Cross the fingers. Let's cross the fingers. Let me shut the hell up, actually. Everything I say on this damn show comes to life. Yeah, never mind. I didn't say shit. You didn't hear me say anything.
No more jinxes. But yeah, mine was good. Anna Ruth finished her first year of law school in May, and she is interning at Shelby County Public Defender's Office. So they had an event for all the interns on Friday night. They bought everybody tickets to the Redbirds game. So went to the Redbirds game Friday night, stayed until like the top of the 8th, went to Kooky Canuck afterwards, just me and her. It was fire. Hadn't been there in forever. Love that place.
Did you get the big burger?
Yeah. Got it. No, not like
you guys share the 2-pounder, 5-pounder, whatever the hell it is.
We didn't do that. Got some poutine and a burger and called it a night. And then we had, so nobody will have to hear this until next year. Last crawfish boil of the year was on Saturday. So those are done for the year.
Since you're marrying a lawyer, I may have to get in touch with her about how I'm going to get my part of the house settlement. $2.8 billion in back pay for former athletes. Yeah. And I think it's from 2017 on, or no,
2016.
2016 on. So I would have 2016, 2017 at the University of Memphis. But I did go and see how you could log in and figure out the house settlement. For those that don't know, we're going to talk about the NCAA versus house settlement here in just a moment. But there's a place online you can log in, but they make you recover your NCAA ID. And I have yet to be able to find my NCAA ID. So if anybody in the comments, anybody under this video, if you have any way of me retrieving my old clearinghouse ID, I am all ears because I want to get whatever money is owed to me because Lord knows I would have made plenty of money. At least my junior and senior year had been a part of my life.
Did you call the university? Does the university
know I've been in touch with a few people over there. I haven't been as persistent as I should be, I guess. But I think for them, I'd have to jump through a few hoops because I don't know if they get your full NCAA ID. I think they just have like the last 4 digits or whatever the hell it is.
What do you okay? Just like for fun, how much money do you think you'll get from it?
That would be dependent on how many people sign up to get money. And I still have questions about those people that are signing up to go get money. Like how many are like walk-ons and how much would they get? Is it skewed to people who started? Because that's how it ended up working out the past few years, right?
Yeah. Since NIL became who's like the biggest?
I would so like my
like 2016
cost of attendance check when I got the back pay on cost of attendance ended up being like $5,000. So I'd say probably somewhere around there is just like ballpark.
Not bad.
$2.8 billion worth of money, though, is a shit ton. That's a lot.
Who's like a person from that time, though, like 2016, 17, that would be a big NIL person? I'm trying, I guess, like Baker would be a big
Baker.
Kyler.
Yeah.
I'm just basically trying to think of
CD Lamb, guys like that.
Devontae Smith.
You brought up Oklahoma. I have to bring up CD.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown.
Devontae Smith would be a big one, too. He won, 2019?
Whoever the Alabama quarterback was at that time. Was that Jalen Hurts?
Not with Devontae. I think that was Mac.
Okay. No, I thought Mac was after I got done. Either way, there's a lot of guys that probably can recover some money. I hope the NFL guys, shit, you don't need any of that. Leave it for us scrubs who couldn't get to the NFL, man. But let's go. I want to go ahead and open here because this is the huge news of the week. And this came down on Friday, and we've been waiting for it for a while. But the NCAA house settlement is finally approved. So what you guys out there need to know is that schools can now directly pay athletes for their play and their participation starting July 1st using revenue sharing. What's revenue sharing? Whatever they bring in ticket sales, whatever they bring in TV revenue, they can then take that money and share it directly with their players. There's other things involved with that, but that is the gist of it. And worth noting, the cap for the amount of revenue you can share per year is $20.5 million with your players. There's some schools that can immediately get up to 20.5. There's other schools, like we'll talk about in a second, the University of Memphis, that will not likely be able to reach that $20.5 million per year, but they can try to be as competitive as possible. But I think in the grand scheme of things, the question we're asking here tonight is how much of an impact does this have on the future of the University of Memphis athletic department?
I think you have some people that are a little bit more optimistic, but honestly, like you said, there are schools, non-Power 4 schools, smaller schools that will have a lot of trouble hitting that $20.5 million cap. Memphis definitely falls into that category because you have some schools that, baseball is going to bring good money in and softball will bring decent money. Other sports, like for the University of Memphis, it's football and basketball. And with the TV contracts of the American and with the worrisome number of football attendance over the last couple of years, it's just like
Basketball attendance ain't been much better.
No, basketball attendance hadn't been great either, but it just I don't know. I don't know what happens to schools like Memphis over the next several years with this. I mean, because I just don't know all the details of this yet. Like, can you still subsidize like you could
Yeah.
this year with NIL? Can you still get money from businesses and have collectives, or does this do away with that? I don't know if you know. I don't know if you've.
I
read
know.
about
I
it.
do know this. The collectives, they're trying to make name, image, and likeness money. So collectives, they're trying to minimize their impact with the
Right.
house settlement.
They're trying to make them more of like that's where the advertising dollars come in for doing things for local businesses.
Yes, correct.
It basically takes the NIL collectives to what they were supposed to be at the
In the
beginning of
first,
this and what they
yes,
were for
correct.
like a year. That's where businesses can contact players through a collective. That was my understanding too. I just wasn't 100%. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer on this. I don't think it's good for the University of Memphis. I think that's for sure. I
Right.
think it puts you immediately at a disadvantage with other schools, not necessarily on your level, because I mean, in the American, Memphis is still the top of the class, but the obvious answer to this becomes the obvious answer for the past 3 or 4 years, and it's that Memphis just has to continue doing whatever they can to get into a bigger conference with
Correct.
bigger TV deals where they can get more money off of that.
And you get better
they,
ticket sales at the
yeah,
gate when you have better teams coming into the FedEx Forum or Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. I mean,
yeah,
it's that simple. I agree with you. I mean, that's ultimately the way out of this. But considering their position right this second, I think they're fine. Like in the grand scheme of the AAC. But when we're talking about the way things have been for a while, where you're in Division 1A football and you've at least been able to keep competitive with teams in the Power 4 structure and the power structure, it's just hard to imagine that consistently being the case. Like when we just look at the grand scheme of things, and this is not Memphis, this is just about everybody. I think that this is this case at Alabama, just like it is at UL Monroe. About 90% plus of your revenue generated in your athletic department is from football and men's basketball.
yeah.
So based on this settlement, likely about, and this is the estimate that's been given, 90% of the revenue sharing is going to go to football and men's basketball. And I think for the University of Memphis right now, I'm curious about how they continue to operate as a fully functioning athletic department. What do I mean by that? Fully functioning means Olympic sports, men's and women's golf, whatever you carry, you're going to keep up all of those sports. It's hard for me to imagine them getting through this without getting into a better situation, sort of staying pat and being able to afford to keep up those sports.
Yeah.
It's very hard to imagine. For a long time, athletic departments have been subsidized by men's basketball and football, and that's just the days of that. They're completely over. And I'm concerned about their placement in the big picture when we talk about getting into the power structure and being outside of it. I think they can own the lane they're in, but what's that lane going to be in 10 to 15 years if they don't get into the ACC or the Big 12? That's the question we need to ask. Now, one interesting tidbit I did see today is Boise State, who's outside of the power structure in the Pac-12. They're doing everything they can to try to get a new media rights deal and get some good revenue so they can share with their players. But Boise State, their AD, Jeremiah Dickey, their president, they've been talking about bringing in a private equity firm to work alongside them to give them an influx of cash to generate revenue to then ultimately pass down to their players so they can remain competitive with the top of football, that sport, remain competitive in men's basketball. And I was thinking about that at the University of Memphis, and I guess considering the circumstances on the table right now, I would have to ask the question, why not? Why not make that an option? I understand that getting into bed with a private equity firm can be a bit of a, doing a deal with the devil, right? If you don't fulfill your promises and boost the amount of money you're bringing in every year, and they ask you to start paying back that money, you could be shit out of luck, right? You could be bankrupt as an athletic department. But at the same time, if you want to remain competitive as you have been, it feels like that may be the only option. If you want to stay a top 25 team in basketball, if you want to stay a top 25 team in football, there's just only so many things you can do, and that may be an option out there on the table. And Boise State has already said they're going to look into it.
Yeah, because I mean, in reality, what's the alternative? Like you said, we don't know what this looks like in 10 or 15 years. Like, could this already, without trying to do anything like a private equity firm, could this already
Could you already be screwed?
Could you already be bankrupt as an athletic department? Could you already have to disband multiple sports and lose programs and not be anywhere near competitive in football or basketball just because you never took that shot? And so I know it's not the ideal thing to have to do, but in the grand scheme, it definitely could be a worthwhile shot. It could be your only opportunity left to get into a big Power Four conference. And that brings up even more complication, though, because it's like, what do the conferences even look like in 3 to 5 years? What happens there? But
private equity, an influx of money from a private equity firm does not guarantee that you'd get to that next conference. So again, there's pros and cons. There's risk versus reward here. You take on that type of money, you're taking a pretty substantial risk, but is there a reward you think you can get by taking in that money? I know some people are going to be adverse to this thought, but at the same time, we're in a new day and age, and with new day and age, new circumstances, new ideas. And this is a new idea and at least something that needs to be thought about.
Yeah.
With the new spot that we're in college athletics. I did see this. So to clear up everything, $20.5 million in revenue sharing is what you could potentially offer. The American Athletic Conference says over 3 years, they're the only conference with a minimum that you have to spend. 3 years, $10 million is what you have to spend on your players. But this does not cover NIL. And Memphis has done really well in the NIL space, so this is going to be interesting to get around. With the NIL space, there's going to be a new commission created. Did you see this? Commission created, the College Sports Commission. It's going to be headed up by a former MLB, or no, not a former, a current MLB, Major League Baseball executive, Brian Seeley. And this commission is basically there to avoid the NCAA punitive process, which Memphis fans are like, hell yes, get rid of the NCAA punishment process, but it's going to a different punishment process under the College Sports Commission. But I saw that any NIL deal struck over $600 needs to pass through the College Sports Commission's approval process. How wild is that?
That is going to be a busy office.
And it's going to be a highly sued office.
Absolutely.
Because unless you have market boundaries and fair market value ironed out by the courts, there is going to be autograph signings for $300,000 for 5-star recruits when they hit campus. And who are you to tell them that that's not fair market value?
Yeah.
They could sign one autograph and someone's going to say, well, that's $200,000 because someone paid $200,000 for it.
Yeah.
And what is that's my question for this College Sports Commission. How are you going to be able to police that in a way that keeps you from being absolutely sued? The first time you stamp a deny on one of these NIL claims, that person's going to come after you.
Yeah.
There's no avoiding that. So I think even though we've talked about the House settlement, I think there's at least some ground rules. This needed to happen. It was a necessity. Don't like it for the University of Memphis and anybody outside of the power structure. This does not end or absolve the powers that be from more litigation and more changes in the next decade to 20 years.
No, not at all. But really the last point I have on it is you and I have been talking a lot about making this thing more legit, spelling things out a little bit more, not everything being totally up in the air behind closed doors and not knowing how much each school spends or what each player makes. So this just, to me, makes everything more legitimate. It's
Yep.
taking a step in the right direction of a lot of the issues that we've been talking about, as far as just players getting screwed because everything's behind closed doors and there's no written rules on what you can and cannot do. And that's why, kind of like we talked about earlier, NIL collectives went from a way for players to make money off of their name, image, and likeness through, local, national companies, to an NIL collective becoming a money pumping business for players. That's just how they filtered all their money through. So I think it just brings a lot of things topside. I think it makes things more legit. And I think it's just the beginning of steps in the right direction to make everything legitimate. So I know
Yes.
it's a little bit scary for a school like Memphis, but I think for the college athletic landscape overall, I think it's a good step.
They
And
had no choice.
it's a necessary step.
Yeah, you just had no choice. You had to go this direction. I think ultimately what they're going to have no choice in is collective bargaining agreements, unionization, and employer-employee relationship as well. That's how this has to end unless they get, I don't know, I'll just say a boatload of antitrust exemptions, which I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you exactly what they need to get them on, but they'd have to get a lot of exemptions to be able to operate this way for the rest of time. I can say that much. All right, on to a different story. Not fun, but Zach Edey injured. How about this?
Yep.
Zach Edey has an ankle injury that he sustained away from Memphis doing his offseason workout, and he's going to miss the first part of the season after he gets surgery. I think this is – I don't know. They haven't, sort of mentioned this, but it sounds like the Tua Tagovailoa tightrope surgery. His ligaments are loose, which leads to more injuries. They're going to try to tighten up those ligaments and keep his ankle from rolling as consistently as it has. So he'll miss the first part of the season. Man, Grizzlies just can't catch good luck. That's my biggest take. As annoying as that take is, that's my biggest take on this.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're not wrong. It has been the last 2.5, 3 years now. It's just been injury after injury. They just can't escape it. Whether it's been Ja or Brandon Clark or Jaren Jackson missing time. I mean, you think back to not this past season, but 2023, when they basically had nobody left on the entire team.
Right.
They have not had good injury luck at all. And I think if you're right on this, if it's the tightrope surgery, hopefully it's a good thing long term. Obviously, it sucks a little bit that he won't be able to start the 25-26 season. But if it's something that lengthens his career and helps him stay healthy throughout multiple seasons, that's a good thing. I think the biggest negative, though, in the short term is we didn't get to see a lot from Zach Edey last year. He had his moments, but it was a lot of up and down, and probably more down than up. But this was a big off season for him to continue to learn and to, with the new coaching staff, to find a way to integrate him better into this system and use him better than Taylor Jenkins did. And now with this injury and him missing the beginning part of next season, it's just like, it's probably going to take that development even longer now. And it could be a process where it's like, okay, Zach Edey by the 26-27 season might be more helpful than he is this year. So I think a lot of people saw the light at the end of the tunnel with him. And now that's kind of cloudy.
I think most players in just about every North American sport, professional sport, would say the leap you take from your rookie to your second year, it's the most important, biggest off season, because year one, you're gathering data. You're learning what you do well, what you need to work on. And what does Zach Edey need to work on? Pick and roll defense. He needs to work on finishing around the rim, his post moves, passing out of the post, things like that. And he's taken in all that data. He starts to work on it, and here's this ankle injury. Right. And now you're going to miss that entire summer. And you're not going to be able to work on those things like you wanted to. And you compound it with the fact it's a new coach, new system altogether. And the Grizzlies have run into this situation more than one time. Let's look back to last offseason, G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams Jr. You don't think they would have been a part of the rotation and way better last year had they participated in summer and gotten to improve from year one to year two?
Yeah.
You don't think that those guys would have actually, G.G. Jackson was in the G League. Vince Williams Jr. wasn't even in the rotation by the end of the season. You don't think those guys would have benefited pretty greatly by being able to work on things this past
100%.
offseason? I mean, we're looking at that with Zach Edey now. And I think the Grizzlies in the meantime ought to go shopping for some type of big. You just need somebody who can set screens and finish around the rim a little bit, block shots. Like you don't need to ask for too much.
No.
To sort of sit in there while Zach Edey is out. But I think they need to find something to start the year with, because next year's a pivotal year, and starting it without your starting center, that's all. You're already starting it on a bad foot. No pun intended.
Yep, couldn't agree more. All right, Gabe, let's take a quick break and we'll be back on the other side with the hot three.
We can't have nice things, Uncle Buck. We're not allowed. There we go for thinking that in the middle of the summer I can have, for in the middle of June, I can turn off the Grizzlies PR notifications, because it was announced that Zach Edey re-injured his left ankle and he's going to have surgery.
Humans are not supposed to be that big.
Thank you.
Like, I mean, it just is what it is.
But the question I have for you is, who's the Grizzlies starting center at day one? Who starts for this team center day one?
Brandon
is he
Clark's
on the roster right now
for the start of season either, is he?
Who?
Brandon Clark?
No. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't want to
If we assume Brandon Clark's, the chat can help me. Rusty corrected us. He said he should be ready for fall camp. So,
okay.
All right, there's your starting center.
That's
my vote. BC and Jaron always play good together. He's a vet. I love Brandon Clark. That's my vote.
Tune in to The Daily Grind with your host, Luke Hatmaker, every Monday through Friday at 7:30 a.m. live on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Looking for an alternative to alcohol or conventional medicine? Check out Ounce of Hope, a Memphis-based dispensary with 2 local stores in the Sanderland Center and on South Cooper Street. You can get all the products you need in a location convenient to you. Each store offers an intentional shopping experience with dedicated bud tenders to answer all of your questions, from product selection and mushroom blends to our personal favorite, the Delta 9 seltzers. You gotta try the Peach Buzz. Try Ounce of Hope at either one of their 2 Memphis stores or at www.ounceofhope.com for convenient products shipped right to your door. Use the promo code BluffCity for 15% off any order, excluding sale items. Cannot be used in conjunction with other promotions or discounts. One use per customer.
All right, I'm going to save the theatrics for Kenny when he comes back to Hot 3, but we're just going to hop right into it, brother. I'll run it this week, and he'll be back next week. Let's start. NBA Finals. NBA Finals knotted at 1-1. Game 1 went to the Pacers, surprisingly, but Tyrese Halliburton's been that type of guy these entire playoffs. Had a game-winning shot, 0.3 seconds left, and that is the latest game-winning shot in NBA Finals history. But either way, Game 2 comes along, and Oklahoma City Thunder are really good after a loss. 17-2 so far this year after a loss, 5-0 in these playoffs after a loss, and they win 123-107. Where do you feel the momentum, and where do you feel the series ultimately is going to end with what we've seen through 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, the Thunder have dominated. There's been 96 minutes so far, and the Thunder have dominated 94 of them, 93 of them, something like that. I mean, the Pacers didn't take their first lead in Game 1 until Tyrese Halliburton hit that shot with 0.3 seconds left. So I think knowledge would say that the Thunder have control of the series, even though they split at home. They've looked good in both games. It just took a late run from the Pacers to win that Game 1. But I'm just not going to be the person to bet against the Pacers. I know the Thunder are more talented. I know they're deeper. They're just a better overall team. They have the reigning MVP. But there's something about the Pacers that just they don't bat an eye. And I
Sure.
know they lost big in game 2, but it's been the theme of their entire playoffs. Like you can't kill them, and I don't think losing one game handily is going to hurt their confidence by any means. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton hasn't played particularly well in either game, which was the case in the regular season as well. Like the Thunder were just his kryptonite in the regular season. But I'm not going to bet against them. I'm not going to bet against them to take this series to 6 or 7 games because I think they have an unrealistic belief in themselves. And we've seen that throughout these playoffs. And when you have a player like Tyrese, who I think either in these playoffs or in his playoff career, I think it's in these playoffs, he is 12 of 13 on shots in the last 60 seconds of games, which is just absurd. So if they can get it close, I mean, they've shown throughout the playoffs they're the best team down the stretch, late in games, clutch time. Like, they have no issues. They're not scared of the moment. The moment's not too big for them. So I know common sense and common knowledge says that the Thunder will win this series, and I still believe that they will. But I've heard a lot of people now say, okay, Thunder are going to gentleman sweep. They're going to win this in 5. It's going to be over. I still can see this going to 6 or 7. Like I'm not betting against them, especially game 3 back in Indiana. We know what that environment's going to be like. I think they can still win another game at home and at least stretch the series out a little bit.
Yeah, I disagree in the sense that I think the Pacers have a chance to win this series. I think it's going to go 6 games likely, and it'll be the Thunder winning.
Yeah.
And there's 2 things that really show me that. One, I think Mark Daigneault, as great of a coach as he is for the Oklahoma City Thunder, I thought game 1 was pretty embarrassing what he did. He didn't play a 2 big lineup with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, which is what they won all 12 of their games doing leading up to the NBA Finals. It's like, brother, you're the 68-win team. You're the best team in the NBA. Make them make an adjustment off you. Don't just put Case and Wallace in the starting lineup and not play those 2 bigs next to each other because you're like pre-adjusting the adjustment you think they're going to make. Like, don't outsmart yourself. But he didn't play them for a single minute on the floor, and they got out-rebounded by 17 in game 1. And down the stretch, they got out-rebounded pretty heavily. So, I don't know. Maybe put the 2 7-footers on the floor, and you'll rebound better. But he does that in the second game, and they out-rebound the Pacers by 8. If you're counting at home, that's a plus 25 rebound differential flip. And it's like, Mark, what the hell were you doing? I know that you were up by, 15 in the fourth quarter. I get that the adjustment you made wasn't like that detrimental, but as it sort of played out down the stretch, it did mean something. The Pacers out-rebounding you by 17 meant something, and you didn't play your bigs. And here's probably the more important thing for me. Who are the stars on each team? Who's the Thunder star?
Jay.
Who's the Pacer star?
Tyrese. Or Siakam.
Let's say Tyrese. It's Tyrese Halliburton. He's the household name. He's clutch. He's done all the good things. SGA just set a record, an NBA record for points in his first 2 finals games ever. He has 72 through 2 games, 38 and 34. The Pacers have spot answers as to how to limit and stop SGA, but I think the first 2 games have shown you they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
They can't do it. The Thunder, on the other hand, don't just have like spot moments where they can stop Tyrese Halliburton. They do it for 48 minutes.
Yeah.
First half in game 2, 5 points on 2 for 7 from the field. It's compounded, you know. One star can get whatever he wants when he wants, and one star can't get anything. When you look at the 4 games that the Thunder and the Pacers have played, Tyrese Halliburton has a significant drop in averages. 10 points per game, 5 assists per game, and 2 turnovers per game.
Yeah.
During the regular season, he averages 19 points per game, 9 assists per game, and 1.5 turnovers per game. All of his numbers are dramatically worse, and the sample size is doing nothing but getting bigger.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be the biggest difference. The Pacers don't have answers for the star. that the Thunder have in SGA, but the Thunder have every answer in the world for the star that the Pacers possess in Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds very simple, but sometimes star power shows through and wins you series, especially at this point in the NBA season when you're in the NBA Finals. It's just hard for me to give the Pacers a shot. Could they win one more game? Yeah. But I think last night, watching game 2, it became apparent to me, as long as Mark Daigneault doesn't get too damn cute, and as long as obviously Chet and J-Dub don't completely disappear or break a leg out there, I think the Thunder have this one in the bag relatively easily.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's definitely the biggest concern is Tyrese Halliburton and his just overall ineffectiveness against the Thunder. And it's not even the scoring, because even if you look across these playoffs, I know it might seem like it because of just the amount of big shots that he's hit, but he still hasn't been like an elite score. Like, he hasn't been scoring at an elite clip. It's just not who he is. It's not who he is as a player. He is.
But those 30-point games, that ain't happening against this Thunder team.
No,
I think that was clear. But like when you just visibly watch, there's 2 things I notice. One, he ain't getting downhill and getting to the rim. Not happening. They have too good a rim protection with Hartenstein and Chet, depending on who's on the floor, if both of them are on the floor. And once that third dribble hits the ground, they're stealing the ball from you. Best turnover differential in the history of the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm not really.
He can't create space to get a jumper because it's Lou Dort, SGA, or Cason Wallace, and he's got that wonky wind-up and delivery that's either easily blocked or it just takes too long to get up. So, it's a really, really bad matchup for Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah. No, and it's really not even the scoring that concerns me. It's just the facilitating. It's the assist numbers and the turnover numbers. He can't conduct the offense in the same way against the Thunder. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, even if he was scoring 10 to 12 a game, but his assist numbers went up to 11 or 12 a game against the Thunder, you say, okay, he's subsidizing that somehow. The offense is still working relatively well. He's just not scoring as well, but it's across the board. Like you said, it's the points are down, the assists are down, and the turnovers are up. So it's not the fact that they're good at stopping him from scoring. It's the fact that they are good at stopping him from facilitating and conducting the offense. And that's what he does. He doesn't have to be an elite scorer for them to be a good team. He just has to run that offense the way that he's been able to the majority of the year. And he cannot do that against Oklahoma City.
Yeah, but I also think part of that is respecting him as a scorer. And I don't see the Oklahoma City Thunder doing that.
No, I don't think they do either.
Yeah. All right. Now, second in the hot 3. Let's go to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is finally signed. Did it on Friday.
Finally.
Flew out to Pittsburgh, signed with the Steelers. 1 year, $13.65 million with incentives and escalators that could get him to $19.5 million.
How you feel?
I mean, I think the Steelers, considering what they had on the roster, they're still a winner in this situation. You have a guy who, he's not himself. He's not the same as he once was, but threw for 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions last year. Yeah, and you were dangerously close to relying on Mason Rudolph or Will Howard in his rookie season. So I view them as winner, and I view all their wide receivers as winners, including my former teammate Calvin Austin III. That should be fun to see if Aaron Rodgers can uncork some deep balls to him and sort of utilize him within that offense. DK Metcalf should be a really good target for Aaron Rodgers. I still expect Aaron Rodgers to go find one of his convince the Steelers to sign one of his former,
Alan Lazard's coming.
Yeah, the Alan Lazard. They're going to go find. I mean, is Greg Jennings still playing football? I don't know. Geronimo Allison, is he out there? He'll probably go find one of those guys for himself. And the Steelers may sort of bend the knee to that. But this is fine. I guess the only question really for me is just how's it going to jive in that locker room? We know that that's a culture-based organization, and Mike Tomlin is a culture coach, and disrupting that culture could be very detrimental to the success of the entirety of the whole thing, the whole operation. So how does that figure itself out? I think that in a general sense, I trust Mike Tomlin that he signed off on it before Omar Khan ultimately made the signing. And I also trust Mike Tomlin to like control it. Is that the right word for it? Control it or manage it? Because he's done that in the past with more volatile situations. Like Antonio Brown, until he left the Steelers, we didn't even know he was a psychopath. And we know for a fact he's a psycho now.
Or Le'Veon Bell.
Bryant, Le'Veon Bell, Deontay Johnson, like all those guys gave him good production because he was able to sort of manage the situation pretty well. George Pickens even to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So I trust him to be able to do that, although this is a different thing altogether. This is a 41-year-old close in age to Mike Tomlin, if you believe that, and he sort of thinks that he's got all the answers, as opposed to those guys who were, looking at Mike Tomlin as a like this is my coach. This is a guy who's had a bunch of success. He's going to lead me in the right direction. Aaron Rodgers is one of those guys you just can't tell him right from wrong. He knows right from wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and none of those guys were his quarterback.
Right.
Which is another big piece of it. And I don't know if you saw the report, but it said that Aaron Rodgers was actually their third choice behind Matthew Stafford, who apparently they tried to trade for, Justin Fields. Yeah.
They botched this, though, ultimately. I want to make that clear. They screwed this whole thing up, but they're better than they were on Thursday.
But here's my kind of question and kind of point on it. Is that better? Because let's think about the Steelers. They haven't had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. But they also, they haven't won a playoff game since like 2015.
Been a while,
2016. It's been a while since they've won a playoff game. And so I think Aaron Rodgers would be fine, like you said, especially towards the end of last year with the Jets when they got Devontae Adams. Like, he looked good for the most part. Even though the offensive line wasn't great, they had trouble getting Breece Hall going because of the offensive line. They had trouble protecting Aaron Rodgers. The Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams thing was working well, and he looked pretty good for the most part. So I think he'll be fine. I mean, he doesn't have the best weaponry, but he's got DK Metcalf, who I think he can work well with. He's got Pat Freiermuth, who I think he can work well with. Calvin Austin gives him a deep threat. We'll see what they have in Roman Wilson, who was a second-round pick last year. So it's not a good receiving core, but it's not the worst in the league either. So I think they'll probably win 9 games.
I think they have some interesting pass-catching backs out of the backfield. They signed Kenny Gainwell, so there's that.
Have Jalen Warren.
And Jalen Warren's pretty good at that. So, we know Aaron Rodgers is not averse to a check down every once in a while, getting his running backs involved. So,
But here's my thing. They signed Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year deal. They're not a Super Bowl contender in my mind at all. So what's the point?
What's next?
Yeah, they're delaying the inevitable. Like, if they would have, I know if you're a Steelers fan, rolling out with Mason Rudolph or Will Howard this year would have sucked. But this is a really good quarterback class coming up. And it could have gotten –
You're right. I know where you're going.
It's not an unfair question because they're just stuck in purgatory.
I get it, but that's not a thing that the Steelers do.
No, it's not.
It's not in their blood. It's not in their DNA to tank.
No, it's not the Steeler way at all. But, they're not good enough to be a Super Bowl contender, maybe not even a playoff contender because of the division that they play in. When you look at Cincinnati and Baltimore, both being better than them, in my opinion, on paper. And it's like, okay, you're not good enough to compete, but you're not bad enough to get a top 5 pick with Aaron Rodgers in the fold. Are they just going to be stuck here forever? Because how are they ever going to get an elite quarterback? I don't see an avenue in which they do get an elite quarterback because they're probably not going to trade 4, 5, 6, something picks like that to eventually get a quarterback. I mean, clearly they were going to.
There's ways, there's things they could do. They could trade up in the draft and find some way to get up in the draft.
Yeah, but when's the last time we saw a team go from 18, 19 to 2 or 1? I mean, the amount that you would have to give up in the modern era to get that high in the draft if you're winning 9 or 10 games. I mean, it's just. I think they're just stuck. I think they are stuck in this purgatory of we're not good enough to compete for a championship, but we're not bad enough to get an elite quarterback. And I don't see any way out of that because you look at them defensively and they still have some of their pieces. And
that's another question, though, to your tanking thought, right?
Yeah.
Are they bad enough to tank, legitimately tank?
I mean, if they threw Mason Rudolph out there,
Well, they've won games with Mason Rudolph. They still went 9-8 with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, playing quarterback.
But there was a better team.
There was more talent. No, I get it. I'm just saying, like, they're still good enough to win 8 games with Mason Rudolph at quarterback and all that. 7 games.
They'd probably win 6 if Mason was at quarterback, and they could be more in that trade-up category. So I know it's all like whatever. It's all nonsense pretty much, but I just don't they just are constantly putting a Band-Aid on it. They're just the Colts from a few years ago. Right. I mean, when the Colts
but at least the Colts had an excuse. Andrew Luck retired mid-career.
Right. And then what did they do? They went like Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers.
Well, at least Big Ben, like, that was, you knew he was gone. He'd let you know. Dude, I'm 38 years old. I'm done.
I think this will be the 4th or 5th season in a row that they've had a new starting quarterback.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that question, though. This is a question I do genuinely have. So, let's see. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Big Ben are like the quarterbacks that have started games for them. And now you're going to have Aaron Rodgers. Where's Aaron Rodgers rank among those guys? And I'm talking, like, don't just say Big Ben, like, full career. I'm talking 2021 Big Ben on the way out.
Oh, Rodgers is.
I think Rodgers is the best from a talent perspective, even at 41 years old.
Correct.
42 mid-season.
No, I agree with that, but this team has progressively gotten worse because they've been so good defensively, but a lot of their defensive stars have aged. That's mainly like Cam Hayward.
So you're basically saying he's the best of shitty options. So what am I really saying?
He's the best quarterback that they've had over the last 6 years, but this is the worst team that they've had over the last 6 years, probably.
Right.
So it just it's almost kind of a wash in some areas. So I think they're still kind of the same as they have been. 9 or 10 wins, maybe sneaking into the playoffs, but they're not scaring anybody.
All right, now let's stay in the AFC North. Nick Chubb, he was, of course, let go or contract run out. It ran out with the Cleveland Browns. And if you know anything about Nick Chubb, he came into the league in 2018 out of Georgia. 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022, he ran for 1,000 yards. And he also was a Pro Bowler all those years. And then 2023 against the Steelers, he ended up having a massive knee blowout when Minkah Fitzpatrick went low on him. He had to rehab the entirety of that season, into the off season, into the next season. 2024, he comes out, plays 8 games, but gets hurt again. And today he signed with the Houston Texans, 1 year, $2.5 million. And for me, Nick Chubb was on the fast track to being one of the very few running backs in this league that would have been a future Hall of Famer. Like, he was on the track to being in that Derrick Henry category.
Yeah. Like, I think for 2 or 3 years, he was the best pure runner in the league.
Yeah, like year in, year out, in between the tackles, just imposing his will. Double-digit touchdowns per year, always running for 1,000 yards, always making Pro Bowls, always near the All-Pro list, second team, whatever it may be. But he to me, is a coulda been. So I wanted to take this moment. We've put together a draft, a coulda been draft. We're going to go snake draft. So this is anywhere in sports. Your guy that you wish wouldn't have gotten injured or had a
potential.
Yeah, like the potential for what he would have been is sort of massive, but it got cut short. You know the guys that fit this category.
Yeah. Now I'm going to stay football centric for mine just because that's how my brain works.
Okay.
So that's just probably
you got first pick, and then we're gonna go snake. So you're 1, I'm 2, 3, you're 4, 5, I'm 6.
Okay. 1-1, I'm gonna go Bo Jackson, and then that'd be low hanging fruit. But this is a guy that's probably one of the top 5 most athletic people that have been alive over the last 100 years that we've seen on a public, in a public forum. And I think, first of all, he concentrated on 2 sports. He played football and baseball. Secondly, he had the hip injury, like pulled his hip out of socket when he was getting tackled. And I think a lot of people, just because the lore of Bo Jackson is really kind of unlike anybody else. A lot of people probably think he had a really good NFL career, and the fact of the matter is he didn't. I've got his stats pulled up here. His first season, I don't think he played at all because that was, I think that was like when the USFL was going on, and it was a payment issue. I think it was something with he didn't want to play for. There was something that happened. He did not play. What technically would have been his rookie year. It was just like, I'm just going to go play baseball. His 4 years in the NFL, he had 554 yards and 4 touchdowns, 580 yards and 3 touchdowns, 950 yards and 4 touchdowns, and 698 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he didn't have a very productive career as far as just numbers wise. But I mean, you look at that and break it down, he averaged 5.4 yards per carry over those 4 years, and his second season was 4.3, so that really brings the overall average down. Also, in 3 of his 4 NFL seasons, he had the longest run in the NFL that year. He had a 91-yarder, and 92-yarder, and an 88-yarder, and those were the longest.
Damn.
Those were the longest in the league each of those 3 years. So 75% of the years that he played in the NFL, he had the longest run in the entire league. So I think with just his size, his speed, his athletic ability. Also, I think Marcus Allen was still there, at least in his first couple years. So he was also not a full-time back. And so he's just somebody that you look at his athletic ability, you look at what he did at the collegiate level at Auburn, you look at what he did in spurts in the NFL, and it's just like, if there's a different timeline where Bo Jackson had a backfield to himself and turned away from baseball as soon as he left college and focused on football, like he could very well be the greatest running back of all time, or at least up there with like Walter Payton and Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith and those kind of guys.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get hurt and if he focuses solely on one sport.
And here's the thing with baseball, that hip injury affected him in baseball too. You can't tell me otherwise. He had a short career one, and man, he was still an all-star. He was top 10 in MVP voting in like 87. And he hit still post-injury. He would hit 25-plus bombs a year as long as he played the requisite amount of games and got the requisite amount of at-bats. Like, I think even in baseball, he was hampered by that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Number 2 pick, pretty easy for me. I'm going to go Penny Hardaway. Anthony Penny Hardaway. Everybody loves that pick. After his rookie season, years 2 through 5,
Nasty.
He was an all-star. He was absolutely insane. And I know that Magic Johnson's like the OG, like big guard, but Hardaway brought like the OG big guard with the same type of feel with the freakish athleticism to back it up, where Magic Johnson didn't have that. And again, from his second year to his 5th year, he had 4 All-Star appearances, and he had 3 All-NBA appearances on the All-NBA team. So if he wouldn't have had that knee injury, holy shit. And I think even digging deeper, like if the Magic would have won the finals or, handled business and him and Shaq never broke up. Yeah. Like, what would have transpired then? Would we ever be talking about Kobe and Shaq? Probably not. Yeah. Where would Penny be if he had that championship and, the butterfly effect changes and he never gets his knee injury? It's just, there's so many things in NBA history that were changed by the fact that Penny Hardaway tore up his knee and was never the same player. Yeah. No, if he stays healthy, it's probably Jordan, Kobe, Penny. That's probably like the you think so?
I mean, honestly, with how good he was, he could have been a top 3 to top 5 guard of all time.
And you didn't put LeBron in there?
That was guards.
Oh, guards. Yeah. Okay. From a talent perspective, man, like I don't know if I disagree. Really. Yeah. I think he could find the open guy. He could pace the game, play defense at a high level. Yeah, think about how size, athleticism.
Think about how highly like Vince Carter
and he had the ability. He could have grown into the ability to shoot a little bit better from the field, from mid range and 3.
Yeah, think about how highly Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Dwayne Wade, guys like that are regarded. and Penny was a passer on top of an elite score. You know,
Yeah.
those guys were scorers. Like, they were score first. That's what they did. And with Penny, I mean, he was a one. He wasn't a true shooting guard. So I think he had really the scoring ability of guys like T-Mac and Vince and Dwayne, but was also just a much better passer and facilitator.
And I know you can call me a homer, but I truly believe this is the order it should be in. I'm going to go Derrick Rose, number 3. He's the youngest MVP of all time, in a league that was run by LeBron, by the way, at that time. Like, yep. he was ridiculous. He had, the Bulls on the doorstep of the NBA Finals one year. Then that knee injury hits, and I understand he's sort of that high-flying point guard, and when you're not very sizable and you have to rely on athleticism that way, we know that injuries could happen, but the injury that he sustained just changed the way he could play altogether. You could see it at moments, like the explosion would still be there the later years with the Bulls, but it just couldn't sustain itself.
Right.
Like it did the early part of his career, the first few years. And that was always sad, man. Bulls fans haven't felt that high since then.
No.
They just haven't.
He floated, man. He absolutely floated. He was incredible in his couple-year prime. I guess it's my turn. It's my turn now. I'm going back to the NFL. This one's probably not as highly publicized, but I'm going Josh Gordon. He's one of my favorite players to watch for the year that he was incredible. But I mean, you look at him. Let me find when he was drafted. I think he was a second round of the supplemental draft. Because I think he also had some off the field trouble and injuries at Baylor, because he did not. He didn't play the full season or missed training camp coming into his rookie season or something like that. In his rookie year, on a terrible Browns team, 50 catches, 805 yards, and 5 touchdowns, and it was kind of like, watch out, this dude.
Just mention the real year. Go ahead and skip.
Could be something. And then the next season, he plays 14 games, so he missed 2 games, had 87 catches, 1,646 yards, 9 touchdowns, 18.9 yards a reception, with terrible quarterback play.
Who was? Yeah, there was several different quarterbacks that year.
It was it was like Josh Campbell, and there was 3 or 4 quarterbacks.
Was Whedon around then?
I think that was maybe the year before Whedon, or maybe Whedon's rookie year. It might have been Whedon. You might be right. But regardless, the quarterback play wasn't good, and there wasn't a team around him. It was just him. I think he set the record for yards in a 3-game span. I think he had multiple 200-yard games that season, at least multiple over 175, 180 that season. He was truly unstoppable, and then he gets in off the field trouble after that. I'm pulling it up now. He went in a 4-week span, 125 and a touchdown, 237 and a touchdown, 261 and 2 touchdowns, and 151 and a touchdown.
And this was when he was probably drinking tequila every day at practice.
Yeah, and he was 22 years old. This was his second year in the league. But yeah, we know
that poor guy though. I know that people will view the substance abuse stuff as oh, look what he did to himself, and yeah, he did do it to himself. But that's a sickness in itself,
right?
That you could almost put that with the issues he struggled from. You can almost put that in the injury category with how bad he suffered from that mental issue. Yeah,
so he's a big what could have been for me. And then finally, I'm gonna go back to the running backs. Stay on the NFL train. I'm gonna go with Todd Gurley. He was so much fun to watch. Just starting his career at Georgia, you could see that he was different. He moved differently, had crazy speed. Big guy, was hard to tell. Just one of those running backs that you turned it on, you were like, this guy's going to be legit in the NFL, and he was. Came in under Jeff Fisher, which wasn't great for him.
Don't remind me, bro. You ain't got to remind me.
Begin his career, the Jeff Fisher era wasn't great. But, I mean, you look down the list. He played from 2015 to 2020, had 6,082 rushing yards, 67 touchdowns, 2,200 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns.
I'd say his pass catching ability would really separated him at times.
Yeah,
All-purpose yards.
2017, I think that's when Sean McVay comes. 788 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns.
Offensive Player of the Year.
On top of 1,300 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns. So 2,000 all-purpose. And you look at, that's only 6 years that he played and played 1 year in Atlanta. He was done by the age of 26. Like 26 years old was his last season, which means he is only like 31 right now. And I think I saw this stat the other day. Since his rookie year in 2015 to now, which is a 10-year sample size, he's still either top 5 or top 10 in touchdowns, and he hasn't played in 5 years or 4 years. That's just 4 years he hasn't played. He's still top 5 or top 10 in touchdowns. So he was somebody big. What could have been for me if his knees didn't give out, because that's really what it was. I think they were saying, his knees were bone on bone. They were basically just fully arthritis by the age of 26.
Yeah, he had basically run out of meniscus.
Yeah, he had no knee left. So that's it for me.
All right, 6th pick. I'm going to have a little more fun with this one, but I truly believe that this guy, had he gotten an opportunity and it didn't just get cut his sophomore year of college, he would have been something. Marcus Lattimore from South Carolina.
That's a good one.
In 2010, as a freshman, ran for 1,197 yards and 17 touchdowns. He was unbelievable between the tackles. And he tore ACL, MCL, PCL, whatever CL.
Yeah.
LCL was in his knee. He just tore it up. And even after that, by the time he was a junior, he was still running for 800 yards in South Carolina. And like the thought of Marcus Lattimore got him, like, and how good he was, like it got him drafted in the 4th round.
Yeah.
By the San Francisco 49ers, even though his knee was.
They probably knew he was done. Yeah.
They knew, but like if there's any shot we can get what Marcus Lattimore was before he got injured, we're going to take our opportunity to do that, because he was pacing.
He was nuts.
His pace, when I think it was the year he got injured, in 7 games, sophomore year, 7 games, he ran for 818 yards and 10 touchdowns in 7 games. So, he's really probably one of the biggest. Would you say he's the biggest what if in college football history for sure?
He's got to be one.
He's up there.
Yeah.
Somebody else would have to fill me in.
Yeah.
This would have to be an old head probably.
Yeah, top of my head.
Like in my lifetime, definitely the biggest in college football history.
Justin Ross.
I think if he would have
Justin Ross, healthy, I think, is another one.
Okay, but if he would have stayed healthy going into the NFL, he probably would have been 1,000-yard back.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Crazy enough to end it off. You started this conversation with Nick Chubb, ended it with Marcus Lattimore. Both of those guys, devastating knee injuries. Both happened, weirdly enough, against the University of Tennessee. Don't know if you knew that or not.
Really?
True statement. Yeah, 2 of the most gruesome knee injuries I've ever seen in my entire life. Both horrible.
Yeah. No wonder I don't like Tennessee, man.
Yeah.
No all right. Real quick, Christian, you had number 1 pick Bo Jackson, 4 pick Josh Gordon, 5 pick you had Todd Gurley. I had the number 2 and 3. I took Penny Hardaway and Derrick Rose, and then number 6 I took Marcus Lattimore.
Pretty good list, especially for right off the top of the head, right before the show. We didn't do we didn't pour through a list of 200 guys and come up with those. Those were kind of off the top of the head. So we figured with how slow it is right now, we could do something a little fun, and we did. So that's going to end it for this week's episode. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, and comment there. If you're listening via podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platform, you can do the same there. Once again, we appreciate you guys for joining us, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.